Hello, and welcome to Chapter Select at the Movies, the show where I, Jens, and my good friend Randy watch movies based on video games and then talk about what the hell the people who made them were thinking. Randy, how are you feeling today?
Confused at what we just watched.
I also have a lot of questions, but I think the best way to deal with those questions is to start going through the plot in a chronological way, as we have failed to do the last time we did this podcast.
But I like that episode better. Can we just
All
can we
right.
just quickly talk about all of the horrible adult jokes that get jammed in this movie? By the way, what is the movie we are doing this week?
The movie that we are covering today is the Angry Birds movie, which is an animated comedy, star-studded, full
Yes.
of Saturday Night alumni and great actors and comedians. It's really quite amazing. It is almost DreamWorks-like in the way that it has assembled its cast.
And nearly profited $300 million in the box office.
Oh, of course.
It raked in the dough.
Yep, very successful film.
So usually, I mean, we go. I'll let you go through the plot bit by bit, and I'm not going to derail this one like I did last week because while I may and most likely will score this movie lower than the second Tomb Raider that we
Oh,
did last week.
spoilers.
Again, as we have discussed before, the score subject to change based on conversation. I just want to throw out there that we have to remember what this movie got based on, which was a mobile video game that
Yes.
had no plot, and it was just an excuse to fling an object into other objects to break them apart. They just happen to be birds and pigs, and that is where this movie comes from.
And that immediately brings me to my next question,
So
Randy.
the writers went, well, what kind of plot can we throw at this? And they went in a very interesting way.
That is what I mean. Is this a counterculture or is this an anti-woke movie?
I don't think it's an anti-woke movie. It's just birds and pigs
seems like
can't get together.
It seems like it's an accidental one. I mean, the message, if I've learned one thing from this movie, it's that an overly permissive society leaves itself vulnerable to, foreign invaders.
Well, that's only when your leader disappears and gains 300 pounds.
Sure.
I don't know. I'm trying. Go ahead and let's.
Well, the leader. So the leader is, of course, an eagle, and immediately I knew that the eagle was going to be, Captain Quark or Zap Brannigan type character, and indeed,
yes, played by the wonderful Peter Dinklage.
Peter Dinklage does a nice job with that character. In fact, everybody does a really good job. Jason Sudeikis plays the lead as Red. Red is a red bird.
By the way, I could recognize a lot of the voices.
Yeah.
Jason Sudeikis did a great job of me going, I forgot that was Jason. Several times throughout. And I'm somebody that I've watched all of Ted Lasso over the last couple of weeks, so I'm very used to Jason Sudeikis' voice. But yeah, go ahead.
I didn't even mind Josh Gadden. I usually don't tolerate Josh Gadden very much, but like Danny McBride's in it, Bill Hader. So you've got all these great people, Sean Penn somehow. I don't know what Sean Penn is doing here, Kate McKinnon. Anyway, you've got this amazing cast. Hannibal Buress.
Sean Penn's doing nothing. I didn't even know that was Sean Penn until I looked at the cast. Does Sean Penn say one word in this movie? That's an awesome.
Keegan did a lot. Keegan Michael Key as the judge did a lot, and that was a really good
Sean
performance.
Penn needed a payday, so he grunted.
Yeah, I don't know. It must have just been, maybe he just recorded that one line as a favor or something,
right.
But he ended up being credited. It should have just been uncredited cameo. But it's just so you've got this amazing cast, and yeah, Jason is Red. And Red is a bird of anger management issues, and he's working as a literal clown. So he's in a degrading job that he hates, where people mistreat him because he's not there on time and didn't deliver a cake properly. But the cake apparently was a pain in the ass to obtain because it was, he's frustrated with the fact that they're vegans or whatever, and or they don't like gluten, and he needs to cater to their particular needs. That is too much for him
Mm-hmm.
in the service industry. So he's in a job that he hates, and he hates having to cater to these people. And so he has this outburst in which he almost kills the child. But instead of killing the child, he merely imprints it, and now the child thinks that he's its father for the rest of the movie.
That's true. By the way,
So,
my first it's not my first note, but my main note. I'm just going to kind of sprinkle these in while we go through the plot and not derail
uh-huh.
everything. One of my main notes was, how did the directors of this movie get my personality down to a T for Red?
Oh, for Red,
Yes.
he's definitely he's supposed to be that lovable asshole that like he legitimately is, as that he endangers people. He's irrational and you know not
Just,
the movie really the movie celebrates a rugged individualism of the libertarian asshole who just wants to stick to himself and
it's
not
like,
be
just leave
nice
me
to
the
people
goddamn
and not be
alone, and I hate
he
my
he
job. And yeah, I was like, this is
he,
me.
he
This is
doesn't he
me.
doesn't want to live in a society.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's extremely antisocial, but of course he is right. He and the other people with whom he is in anger management, and also Kate McKinnon as Stella, who is the leader of the anger, who's trying to get them to embrace their calm hippy dippy side. To get their anger under control, which they live in a society where that anger seems to just—that's the worst thing that can happen. The most
Yes,
destructive thing is that because
because they are
everybody, it's
happy
it's
birds.
it's a happy one wheel greases the other kind of society. And if you have these kinds of outbursts where you literally explode, like the character of Bomb, played by Danny McBride, where when he gets upset, he turns into a literal bomb, which makes. Oh, I don't know. I think this stuff ties actually pretty well. They do a good job with Bomb and with Chuck and with Red. They do a good job of taking the archetypes from the game and turning them into cartoon characters that
Yeah, they
work.
have their own personalities and they have their own issues. Bomb, I think, was my favorite character in the entire movie,
Hmm.
and part of it is because he is. I mean, he gets angry and explodes, but he also has issues performing. Which there are men out there that deal with that every day, and I feel for those people. But I just that and just he has this kind of childlike mentality on things that just I don't know. I really like I he endured me to his character, and I really liked him.
I also enjoyed his relationship with Stella as well, because they have this nice relationship where he's got this crush on her
Mhm.
and she realizes that there's more depth to him than you suspect at first, that he actually has kind of an artist's heart, and also at the end a great singing voice. So there are little moments that I think there's a lot of characterization stuff that really works. I think Keegan is very funny as Judge Peckinpah. He's just this big pompous aristocratic or bureaucratic kind of dummy who is just so enthralled by what these pigs are up to. Uh, the the pigs. So this is like your classic, almost like the Settlement of America type invasion tactic,
Mhm.
where we're pretending to be explorers, and they're bringing useless trinkets and decadent gifts that are cool and everybody's wowed by these things, even though they're just simple gimmicks.
I do love
And
that it's the pigs that give the birds the slingshot.
yes, that is something. That's a funny thing that is their own downfall.
Mhm.
Though, of course, who would expect, catapulting yourself as a projectile into the enemy fort is an unconventional thing that
And
you
I
wouldn't really
also
expect to survive. But
I
of
mean
course, we're in a cartoon world, so not a problem.
I'm sounding super positive about this movie, but
Uh
we're
huh.
hitting all the highlights. I also do like that it's very simple um, way that they went. Well, why do birds need slingshots? I was like, well, in this universe, birds don't fly, and they nail that home 4,000 times
Yep. Except for the eagle, he's the only one.
because he's the mighty eagle.
Hmm. Yep. But as I said, our protagonist has anger management issues, and we find out in flashbacks it's because he was mocked by atheists for his faith in the great eagle.
Right.
And so he grows up with this chip on his shoulder, and now he's exploding about the fact that these guys want a refund for their birthday cake and almost kills their child. And then that leads to a big scandal, and just as all that's coming to a head, he has to go to anger management class where he meets all the other cool characters with anger management issues who are the only people who can see through what these pigs are up to. But just as they're making progress in their anger management, a ship from this nation of pigs arrives, crushes Red's house in the process, which nobody else seems to mind or care about the fact that Red's house was destroyed. Which brings me to a thing of this movie that kind of drives me crazy. Of course, our main group of lovable outcasts are the only people with any reason whatsoever. But just it's so infuriating how there is just nobody. This society of birds is supposed to be like actually loving and caring, but nobody gives a shit or even notices that Red's life is being destroyed right there. There's no empathy there whatsoever.
You know what movie this reminded me of a lot?
Uh huh.
Chicken Little. Have you ever seen the
Yes, I
Chicken Little?
actually saw that in the movie theater because I'm
Yes,
an adult
this
man.
reminded me so much of it.
Mm-hmm.
Of the group of Chicken Little know all these things and nobody's believing them, and they're just um,
Yeah.
mindless people.
Yeah. So these birds, they're flim flam men. They're pretending to be explorers. They bring a bunch of useless trinkets, inventions. It's all kind of useless gimmicky stuff that isn't really useful for a bird society, except of course for the slingshot, which becomes the catapult in the
Mhm.
warfare back against the pigs in the end. But we're not anywhere there yet. At the moment we're at the the monorail
Yes, exactly.
so, part of the movie where everybody's just enthralled with these pigs and what great showmen they are and how much charisma they have and how they are slightly more technologically advanced and how they promise them the world basically. And nobody knows and nobody suspects except for Red, who of course immediately sees that there is something fishy going on here. That in fact there is an invasion force stashed, in secret in the hull of the ship, in the cargo base. There's basically a whole army of pigs in there, and in fact more ships that arrive as well. So you have a real, colonization effort going on where you could easily see them if they weren't what it turns out. Of course it's not quite as it's terrible obviously, but it's not as terrible as a full colonization. It
Hmm.
turns out that the pig's plan is to steal the bird's eggs because eggs are delicious, as opposed to what you would probably actually do, which is enslave the birds so you have an endless supply of eggs. But these pigs are not that forward thinking. uh, they just steal the eggs for now in the hope. I mean, I don't know how they're going to flim flam their way into their second helping of eggs. That's what I want to know. But
Or maybe they'll just wait for the next generation of birds and they'll forget all about it.
maybe they have short memories. But that's one of those things that this bird. I mean, it's a real society. You would think that there'd be some record keeping.
Right.
We're
Something.
thinking about this a little bit too hard. Maybe there's people who are going to say you're reading too much into this. Like it's
Oh yeah,
just a kids
it's
movie.
a billion% a kids movie. Again, this
But
is
I would actually question whether it is a kids movie because
oh boy, yeah.
are they really like okay? You can argue that the fact that there are the things that drive you crazy, which is the bodily fluid jokes. The fact that we have bodily fluid jokes, I guess that's a staple of
That
kids
goes
movies.
so long.
Yeah, there's just a scene where it's the old thing. It's like it works in The Simpsons when Sideshow Bob keeps stepping on the rakes for like 5 minutes.
Hmm.
That
Or
because
any episode
it's
of
like
Family Guy.
or Family Guy also does that where it stretches, where it'll take a sequence and stretch to the point where like it stops being funny, and then it becomes funny again, and then it becomes really funny. So, so that can work, but here it's just a thing where okay. So when he was a kid, he got mocked for the fact that he believed in the great eagle. The great eagle, at the point, it's a scene that treats it like it's about faith in a deity or something. Then of course the great eagle turns out to be real. He's the former king slash the great hero of the land,
Mm-hmm.
and he's retired to this mountain where he lives in the cave by himself in basically a museum to his former greatness, and has gotten fat and lazy and hedonistic, and he represents, obviously, and with all there's a lot of really American iconography to the depiction of the eagle in this movie. Like everything about it seems to scream that he represents America in some way. So it does seem to be that the movie
Are
is
you
very
saying
much
that all Americans are
restoring his greatness is what I'm
are
saying, is a big arc in the movie.
are we all about we're fat
We
and
got to
full of
defeat the
ourselves,
foreign
fat,
invaders and
lazy, and full of ourselves? That what we got going on with the?
That's. I mean, certainly, I can relate to the eagle for sure. At least at
Oh
his
yeah,
low point.
yeah, I agree.
Just like you can relate to Red. I think we can all relate a little bit to. They've done a good job of giving relatable characteristics to all of the characters, and making everybody kind of sort of likable. As I would still question whether it's a kids movie because it's so weirdly political in the way
Yeah,
it
but that's
depicts
just stuff
stuff. There's
that
all
we
this
will
like weird
notice. Yeah,
subtext.
but that's just stuff we notice, and then the kids
That's
just
stuff
go,
that's for
"Haha, funny
adults.
stuff."
But there aren't really jokes for kids other than the fact that he pees and then he keeps peeing and then he keeps peeing and then he keeps peeing. And the fact that he goes on so long is the joke. So it's that kind of thing. It's not as bad as, like, I don't know if you saw Ghostbusters 2016.
Have not.
Okay, well, there's a scene where they go to see a dean of a university, and this dean dresses them down in the most lazy, badly written way possible, and the scene just goes on for minutes.
Yeah.
And it's obviously, I mean, it's improv, obviously, but it's one of those things where they let him improv for like 10 minutes of movie, and they just kept all of it.
We
So
didn't know what to cut, so
anyway,
we didn't
it's
actually
not.
watch this scene. We just knew he improved a bit, so we're gonna just keep it.
So it's not that bad, but this movie definitely leans into the having, kind of lingering on stuff, or also smash cutting to stuff. Your kind of sitcom or sketch show techniques. It's actually quite slick. I would say that, like, firstly, the animation is really good.
Yeah.
It's not obviously the tone. You know who else does actually that kind of these like type of sketches, the high concept sketches, is Illumination.
Yeah.
Illumination always has a couple of sequences in their movies, or like something like A Secret Life of Pets is almost nothing but that. So you look at those movies and you can see that this is obviously in parts trying to be that, or that style of thing. And it's not that far off in terms of quality. Like, the character animation is really good, the expressions are really good. Everybody's got a strong silhouette, so all the characters are really distinguishable and recognizable from each other. Like, the character design is just very strong. The visual design in general is really good. But of course, it's adapting the visual design of the game, but it's doing a really good job, I think, of adapting the visual
Yeah,
design of the game.
I can get with that.
So I think it's quite well made. I mean, it's at least I'd put it slightly ahead or on the level of the Ratchet and Clank movie in terms of
Mhm.
quality for just the animation
Yeah.
itself. Um, my problem is that it's just not funny.
No.
Like,
all,
there's
all
no.
of the adult jokes in there are just either just so in your face with it that this is for the parents that got stuck with this movie, or just boring. Like
Oh, yeah.
there's a scene in the movie that made my jaw drop,
Uh huh.
where the pigs take off with the eggs and everyone's freaking out and asking, what do we do, what do we do?
Uh huh.
And who was the character? Was it? I think it was Chuck that
Hmm.
basically told all the women to get busy. Like
Oh yeah.
basically, like everyone go out
That's
and
the
have
thing.
sex because we need to
I mean,
make more eggs.
hey man, we're working Doctor Strangelove. We gotta repopulate the human race, or
Uh,
in this case, the bird race.
well, welcome to your kids' movie.
Yeah, so exactly every joke that I got. I mean, it's not that there weren't jokes, but every joke that I recognized as a joke and was like, "Ha, you made it funny," was obviously like aimed at adults.
Yeah,
So I actually do not think that this is a kids movie because I don't think there's really anything for kids here, other than the fact that somebody pees at one point. So I feel like if this is supposed to be a kids movie, that's a big fail. Uh, but on the other hand, if it's a movie made for adults, then is it? Are we supposed to read things into it? Are we supposed to think about it more critically, or like who is it really for?
good question. And that is part of the issue of it, because in the end, I did not watch this one with my kids, though I should have. It was just that
No,
the timing did not work. But I'm just
no, no,
saying, to
no. Your
try to
kids are
get
better
there.
off not
I'm
suffering
pretty
through
sure my
that. Come
son
on.
has watched it, because when I went on Netflix, it wanted to play with like
Okay.
3 minutes left. So
I mean,
somebody
I mean,
watched it, but my daughter swears up and down she has not seen it.
am I just a fuddy duddy about the fact that it just seems a little weird to me? In
With the way they do it, like every kids movie is going to have a couple or have a scene or two that are like, all right, parents, you stuck with it. Here's a joke for you, where the parents will laugh and the kids have zero idea what it's for. But
it's so obsessed with old dance music or old rock and roll. It's so obsessed with
but
having the like.
that
I
thank you.
guess that's is
Hold
that just
on,
a time filler to have just have the characters have long dance sequences to an oldies song?
maybe, but the one that really got me, and it wasn't a dance song, but I have it in my notes because I wanted to make sure I brought this up early on in this movie. I want to say it was after Red gets caught that he was the one that broke Chuck's
Uh
like
huh.
welcome mannequin thing,
Mm-hmm.
and was walking back and he was all sad. They played a random Limp Biscuit song,
uh huh.
and I was like, this doesn't even feel like it fits.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, oh, it's a sad song that obviously whoever made this movie and was coming up with the music that they wanted came up in our generation. They're like, oh, I remember Limp Bizkit, and he did this sad song once. So we're just going to put it in there, even though
Oh,
none of the lyrics make any sense compared to what
it
is happening in the movie.
it goes to show that you and I are the target audience for this movie.
And we didn't like it. Or I didn't like it.
No, well, the problem is, as I said, it's there's really nothing to root for for this entire civilization because they're so the obliviousness goes to the point where they feel like these weird caricatures that are beyond saving and
Mm-hmm.
beyond redemption, and only the you know giant asshole protagonist sees the truth. And it really just kind of bugs me. But of course, the pigs also in their flagrant. Again, nobody recognizes that the pigs are just destroying their entire civilization around them.
Mm-hmm.
So everything, I don't know. It's every character is so stupid
Yeah,
in this movie. There's nobody likable in it
except for
other
Red.
than I enjoy, the physical performance. I enjoy the animation and I enjoy the voice acting.
Mm-hmm.
But the characters are all loathsome. Everybody's horrible. Like again, nobody has any empathy for each other. Even the birds who are nice to each other, again, they don't give a shit. They don't even notice that that things are going to shit around them. And the pigs are such blatant, just complete scum that you just it's just like watching a train wreck. I mean, I guess that's the point, right? We're supposed to. That's how it gets us to empathize with Red. Is our frustration? We're supposed to feel frustration
Mm-hmm.
at the fact that everybody else in the cast is such a complete moron, and only we are as smart as you and I. We are as smart as Red, right? We can see how broken the system really is, and what sheeple people are. I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's just there. It was.
It, it's
I
it's
it
it's
It
It's
it
kind of
is.
like my complaints about remember like the first Sonic movie, which had the weird kind of culture war thing about small town values and how big cities are bad.
Yeah,
That also it's that's kind of where it's like
and to me
what like what are you doing putting this in the kids movie?
because there's
But
no
you're
storyline in Sonic and there's no storyline in Angry Birds, so like, well, we'll
okay.
just
So
throw
you're
this
saying
in there.
we have to somehow get no. Here's the thing. I actually will give the writer, and I don't know who the writer is, but I will give him or her the benefit of the doubt.
Story. It
Um,
was by three different people.
okay, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. That they started with we have to somehow get to the premise of the video game.
Yeah, which is
How can we write
slingshotting
ourselves?
birds at pigs.
How can we write a story where we can build up to we need an excuse for these birds to fling themselves at some pigs and blow up the pigs? Ah, well, we'll have them get back their eggs because the pigs stole their eggs because the pigs want to eat the eggs,
Mhm.
but the pigs, made like, they were nice and, just here to be friends, but you can't trust a pig and only our intrepid asshole hero can see through it.
Yeah,
Eh,
you nailed it.
eh,
And scene. That's it.
yeah. I give this movie a Oh, it's so hard because there's a lot of good production in it, and I like the music. Actually, I mean, okay, actually, no, I need to clarify this.
Okay.
I I think the song choices are worse. This, I complained about this with Mario with Illumination, which
Hmm.
Illumination always does, where they have to, throw overused oldies
Yeah,
into the
you
movie.
got to be able to sell the soundtrack.
But it's not like there's not soundtrack albums anymore. That's the
No,
thing of the '90s when
exactly.
you got the music from and inspired by. I remember those. I had quite a few of those kind of soundtrack CDs. But no, it's just you have to hit the nostalgia button, I
Mhm.
guess, and that's the only way that they know how. And they really just make some of the worst choices possible in that regard with
Mhm.
this when it comes to the songs. However, I think the score is very pretty and very competent and quite memorable, actually. It's got some nice
Yep.
themes in it. So I actually thought the music was nice. So the question is, how do I weigh the competence and the production value against the fact that I thought the characters and the story were loathsome?
That is a
It's a
good question. Where do
difficult,
you go with it?
difficult choice. Uh, you know what? I would like to hear your opinion.
It's just a nothing movie. Like last week, you
Okay.
had talked about how the second Tomb Raider movie was just a fluff movie. I think this is
Uh-huh.
worse than a fluff movie. It is just out there to put mascots on the screen and make a buttload of money, which they did, and I totally get
Uh-huh.
it. But it completely falls flat on being enjoyable or entertaining. There's a lot of times where I was watching this movie and had to go back because I think my mind just wandered, and
Uh-huh.
there's just
Here's
not
the
much
thing.
there. So
If it
I'm giving it a 3.
if it were funny, if it were funny, uh, then I wouldn't be thinking about the politics as much.
Yeah.
I would not be my mind would not be drifting in that direction if they were jokes. That's my problem. And you've got all these talented people, you've got all this talent.
Mm-hmm.
You've got all this money, all this talent, and it was a huge hit. And I just don't understand. As a kid, is it just that the mannerisms and the energy of it would be funny to you, but then none of the jokes would mean anything to you? And if they did, you'd be a weird kid. You'd be, like when Ben Shapiro talks about how he was a kid.
Good question. It's been a long time since I was a kid, so
Hmm. I thought politics were cool when I was a kid. I don't think that anymore. But I didn't really understand them back then. You'd watch The West Wing and think that that was real, which is very funny now. This show's not aged well. Anyway, sorry, I'm on a
yeah,
tangent.
you're just trying not to give
This
a score.
I just really hate this movie. I really hate this movie. I'm gonna have to give this movie a 2.
There you go. Again, this is the first time you've given it 2.
Is it? That can't be. What about
You
Postal?
gave it a 1. You gave Postal and
Okay.
Resident Evil
All right. So I've given lower than
Yes.
what you mean is I've not given it exact
You
score.
have
It's
not
not.
given
I've
it
not
exact.
given
You,
lower.
you gave Postal and Resident Evil the final chapter both a 1, and then you gave Resident Evil Retribution and Resident Evil Apocalypse both a 3.
Oh yeah.
So this is right in between that.
I definitely would prefer. I definitely would prefer those Resident Evil movies over this, even though they're longer.
My 3 for Angry Birds ties it with Dynasty Warriors.
Oh man,
and
Dynasty Warriors is way more fun than this.
and the Super Mario Brothers Morton Jankel cut. That's
No way,
yeah.
no way. What did I give Morton Jankel?
You gave that a 3.5.
Okay,
So
man, yeah, okay. So it's
and
a point and a half away from this.
what are we at? 5 combined score will
Uh-huh.
make this. Oh, I forgot to put the Tomb Raider movie into it, so everything will bump down to 1. It will be in a tie for our 23rd favorite movie out of the 26th that we've watched.
Jesus
It is
Christ.
tied with Resident Evil Retribution and just ahead
that's a piece of shit.
of Postal and Resident Evil the final chapter. Now, I did say that my scores had been trending. When we did Ratchet and Clank, I gave it a 6. When we did Prince of Persia, I gave it a 5. Tomb Raider: The Cradle of Life, I gave a 4. I gave Angry Birds movie a 3. So it's apropos, if you will, that the next movie that we will be watching, that I have already selected, has a chance to continue said trend.
All right. It sounds like you've already made your mind up, which I would not give that impression to the listener, please.
Well,
You've not seen.
I have
not seen this movie, have you?
But I've never seen.
You
But
just have an
I
inkling.
watched the trailer. When
Okay.
trying to decide on the movie, I watched the trailer, and the trailer alone made my nose bleed.
I mean,
it's
I could.
a Yui Bowl classic.
Classic.
We'll go that way out.
It's regarded as one of his better video game movies.
Is it? So maybe it will break the trend.
No.
We will see. We will see if it's one of his better ones. We will see. I've only ever watched the one. You got me into Yui Bowl with Postal. So we will see how it goes. We will be watching Far Cry, partially because I know there's several Yui Bowl movies that we have to get through.
Yeah.
And I want to spread them out.
Oh my god.
And we don't need to go on a Yui Bowl marathon at any point. So let's get this out of the way. And I made the mistake of starting Far Cry 6. Is that the new one?
I don't know. I haven't kept up with that series. I completely stopped.
I just had started it, and then Final Fantasy 16 came out. So I was like, well, I had recently played a Far Cry game, so why not watch Far Cry?
Indeed. Why? Indeed not.
So there you go. That will be for next week or whenever we get there. Hopefully next week. We'll see how life continues to rage havoc on us, but we will make it work. But that is for another time. You guys have a fantastic day.